I just got a new game for my collection, uh, Hammer Slammers. Now, I was first introduced to Hammer Slammers when I was in high school, and it's a series of short stories by David Drake. Um, and one of my buddies was saying, "Oh, you got to read it! You got to read it." I thought the title was silly. I thought it was going to be like a juvenile kids thing. It's definitely not. So David Drake was a Vietnam veteran. He served with I think it was the 11th Cav, Black Horse Armored Cavalry, um, and came back and started writing science fiction, fantasy, whatnot. And Hammer Slammers was about Alwa Hammer's mercenary regiment in the future, science fiction. And they had these fusion-powered hover tanks that fired plasma guns and whatnot. But his when he writes about combat and combat situations and whatnot, it's very realistic because he had been there, done that, you know. And he became one of my all-time favorite writers. And in fact, his book, The Voyage, is one of my all-time favorite fiction books. And The Voyage, so he was a historian. That's what he started out with. Um, uh, he wanted to be a historian, and he was always studying history, and he would translate ancient Latin and texts for fun, you know. So a lot of his stories were based on historical texts. So the voyage is based on the Argonautica, you know, Jason and the Argonauts, translated into Hammer's universe with the mercenaries and whatnot in the far future. But this is one of my all-time favorites. Another book he did, The Forlorn Hope, is about another mercenary unit in a different universe. It was for a different publisher. Excellent books. But the Hammer Slammer series is just superb. And if you like military fiction, especially military science fiction, I can't recommend it highly enough. But anyway, so David Drake passed away a few years ago, and I'm truly saddened by that. There are, though, I've got a lot of his books that I still need to pick up, and I need to start looking for them. He never achieved the popularity that perhaps I think he should have. Of course, when he started writing, like the military science fiction wasn't maybe nearly as popular as it is now in certain circles. It was very shortly after the Vietnam War. In fact, he had a terrible time selling his stuff until basically the first Gulf War really started to become popular. But then, of course, his older materials were sort of going out of print. You can currently get the entire Hammer Slammer series in a series of three volumes, the complete series. And as I said, I can't recommend it highly enough. But I found out that they had several games that were based on his work. And one of them is the Hammer Slammers, The Crucible. And this is a set of miniatures rules. And you have 6mm, 15mm, 25mm miniatures. And these are the ones the guys they paint up and then they build. So like the old sand table wargaming, they'll build cities or forests or whatever. And this is like the hobby train guys, and then they'll fight battles in there. And it's a series of rules, and you measure the distances and figure your sight lines and your movements and all that stuff. And I picked this up, and it was very reasonable. This one is still being published, so it's still in print. Shipped over from England in like 4 days, which is to me just amazing. Yeah, I got this. I can't even think of who I got it from now. Brigade Models. There we go. Brigade Models over in the UK, and they also sell the miniatures. So you can buy, the 15 or the 6mm minis of the hover tanks and the combat cars, and then the various mercenary regiments, and they've got additional rules for the different units that were mentioned in the various stories and whatnot. But this gives the basic rules for the miniature wargaming. I picked this one up. So I got kind of curious, and there was also a hex-based board game, and I've got quite a collection of the hex-based war games. I have very specific tastes, so I don't have a lot of like the World War II and Napoleonic and stuff like that. But I do have quite a few of the hex-based war games, and I just found them a little easier to manage than the sand table miniatures. And I understood that I'd heard about it, but I hadn't really seen it, and so I just sort of tracked it down. And so there was a hex-based board game based on the Hammer Slammers, and this was published back in 1984. Obviously didn't sell very well. It hasn't been reprinted that I'm aware of. And it wasn't very popular at the time because, again, and this is the cover that was on the paperback, by the way. So that's supposedly one of the hover tanks firing the plasma guns, 200mm plasma guns. But Excuse me. One of Hammer's tanks, I'm assuming. But so I figured, I'll go looking around a little bit, and I got this one from Noble Knight Games. They handle a lot of used games, previously owned games, whatever. And I went looking, and they had some of these available in varying degrees. They had one that was unpunched. So these use the cardboard counters. They come in a big sheet, and you punch them out. And they had one that was unpunched and complete, very good condition for $69. That was maybe a little steep. I was really on the fence for that. And then they popped this one up, showed up. Mint condition, $70. Okay, I'm off the fence now. I didn't realize how mint. It's still got the original shrink wrap. So now I have, I am going to take the shrink wrap off eventually, much to the disgust of a lot of collectors, but it's coming off, and I'll probably end up punching the counters too. But for right now, it is pristine, or almost. So you can see where the original price tag got torn off. But other than that, the shrink wrap's even intact. I was not expecting that. But new mint, $70. It's in the collection. And it's not a really in-depth war game. It's not. I've got a couple here that are just insane. It's I think only like 15 pages of rules, but it looks like it should be a lot of fun. A little more complex than, say, like Steve Jackson's GEV or Ogre, that sort of thing. A little less so than, for example, I've got MBT, Main Battle Tank, less so than that. But, it's just good complexity and whatnot. I may get around to playing it, may not. Like I said, I'm not going to be afraid to take the shrink wrap off. But for right now, it's staying in its mint condition. Now comes the next part. So Mongoose Games, back in 2000, I want to say 2009, printed a role-playing addendum for Traveller, or based on the Traveller rules for Hammer Slammers. And again, out of print, found a copy, $95. It's like, oh, geez, do I really? I'm not a big Traveller fan. I never played it. I knew a lot of guys that liked it. I've never even played it, even looked at it that hard. But if I really want to have the complete David Drake gaming series, I need to get the next one. And I don't know if I really want to spring $95 for it. However, it is out of print. If I want to get one, I can't wait too long. But in the meantime, I've got the miniatures rules. I've got the hex base rules. Entire game, with the maps and the markers and all that good stuff. And I may toy with the idea, if I come across some disposable income, I may go ahead and pick up that other one, or just put it off till it's no longer available. But anyway, so I'm getting my David Drake gaming collection, and as I said, there's a lot of his books that I still need to pick up. I don't have all of them. I don't have any of the Isles series, for example. I think I've only got one of the North World series, and I'd like to get all of his books. I really enjoyed his writing, and I'm missing him greatly.